This is an introductory video on how to use the application Google Forms. So when you open up your browser, if you just search for Google Forms, should be the first link that pops up, and if you click on that, this is kind of what the main home page looks like. So if you scroll down, Google Forms gives you kind of just some tips on things that you can do with Google Forms, like survey, give quizzes, things like that. But back up at the top is where you'll want to go to actually get to creating things with forms. So if you click on the blue button, this does require you to have a Google account, and if you're logged out of your account, it will prompt you to log in before you see this page. But once you've logged in, this is kind of what your page will look like, and if you've already created anything with Google Forms, it'll show up down here. So up at the top, you have some options for templates that you can use or blank forms that you can get started with. So they kind of separate them into personal uses that you might need forms for, work forms, and then for our purposes, mostly education. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to make your own blank quiz from scratch. So if you click on blank quiz, when it opens up, kind of the standard layout looks like this. So here is where you can obviously change the title of your quiz and give a description or give instructions about the quiz for your students. And then they go ahead and populate one question for you. So this is where you would type in the first question that you want. And then over here to the side is where you can change what type of question you want it to be, whether you want the students to be able to give a short answer, multiple choice, if you want them to check multiple boxes, a linear scale. So like if you wanted them to rank, from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, or if there's something where you just want them to like sign with the date and time, for instance. So let's just say you wanted a multiple choice question. You would type in whatever your question wanted here, and then this is where you would add all of your options. Down at the bottom, one thing you do want to make sure you click is this required, and this is just going to alert the students that obviously they have to answer that question and they can't submit the quiz without having answered that question. As far as using the answer key option, this allows you to tell Google Forms what the correct answer is so that it could grade it for you, as well as give point values for that question. And then over here, kind of on the right-hand side, this is where you can add new questions, add a new title, like if you want to have a separate section in your quiz, add images to your quiz, link videos to your quiz, or again, just kind of add separate sections. So let's say you want to add a second question that this time is a checkbox. And so just for our purposes, we'll say question 2. And then these would be all of your options. And then let's say for your answer key that only option 2 and option 4 were correct, and you wanted to make this worth 2 points. And then a third question, let's say you want this one to be short answer. We want it to be required. Forgot to make the other one required. And then when we go to our answer key, we can type in what we want the correct answer to be. So let's say the correct answer is the number 10. And it's going to mark all other answers that are not 10 as incorrect answers. All right. Overall, if you want to just change kind of what the quiz looks like, up here at the top, you have this little kind of artist paint palette. And if you click on that, this is where you can change all the just layout styles for your quiz. So up at the top, you can choose an image that will replace that purple header. You have all these different options for sort of categories of pictures. So let's say I go to Other and I choose this one. Or you can upload your own photos if you wish to as well. That will automatically populate these theme colors that sort of match that header for the background of your quiz. So you can go through and change those as well. And then for fonts, you only have 4 options: basic, decorative, formal, and playful. But if you wanted to change those, you could change the fonts there as well. All right, underneath the settings icon is where you can actually control the settings aspects of your quiz. So for instance, in this case, I want to limit my responses to 1 so that my students can only take this quiz 1 time. And then I don't want my students to be able to edit or see a summary of the entire class after they quiz. Presentation-wise, I want to shuffle the question order for my students. And then this is where you can change the message that comes up after they have finished their quiz. Since this is a quiz, this is highlighted to make this a quiz. And then this tab allows Google Forms to grade the quiz for you. If you select to grade later after manual review, what that does is it starts collecting email addresses for your students so that after you grade their quiz, it will email their submission back to them. But then I do want my students to see missed questions, correct answers, and point values after they're done. And then the little I up at the top allows you to preview. So obviously this quiz doesn't really have anything to it, but this is what it would look like from a student view. So let me show you one that I've already done. Let's say that I have this exit ticket. Not necessarily a quiz, but similar type thing in that it's something I want my students to submit to me. So I got this from the top template gallery. And instead of creating it blank from scratch, I just created an exit ticket from the template. So now when you start your own template, generally it looks like this. So in my case, I'm fine with the title exit ticket. I do want their name. Notice the little red asterisk means that that has been marked as a required answer. I don't necessarily need my student's email for this exit ticket, so when I click on this question, I'm going to click on the trash can to delete that question. For these 3 questions, I want them all to get answered, so I'm going to go through and mark every question as required. And then you'll see now that they show up as all marked with red asterisks to indicate that they do have to answer those questions. I do want my students to have paragraph text, but again, same as the quiz, you can change these to short answer, multiple choice, anything that you desire for your exit ticket. And I'm fine with the lookout or the layout, so I don't want to change my colors or anything. But if I double check my settings, I do want to still just limit to 1 response. Presentation-wise, since it's not a quiz, the questions don't really matter. And then again, since it's not a quiz, this is not highlighted. So if I go to preview, this is what it would look like when my students go to answer their exit ticket. So if I pretend that I'm a student and I answer these questions, and then I submit. As a student, you are done with this page. As a teacher, you can now see when you go back to kind of your place where you control the Google form that you have a response. So up here at the top, you can view your responses either by summary per question or by individual response. So the summary breaks it down and shows you every response for that question. The individual obviously would show you just the one page per student. And so in our case, since I'm the only one who's responded, there's only one. And then up here in the top right hand corner, this little green icon creates a spreadsheet. So if this were maybe like a survey instead of an exit ticket that you were wanting your students to collect data and then use that data for something else, you could create a new spreadsheet. And now you have everything kind of in Google Sheets. So you have an Excel document that you could use. And again, if you had more numbers-based things, you could kind of use this to create pie charts, bar graphs, etc. All right, another cool thing that you can do with Google Forms are worksheets. And this will actually allow your students to upload assignments that they've done through Google Forms. So this is one that I created, again, from a template earlier. So I edited my header. I do want their name to be required. And then I added a question where I want them to rate how well they understood the assignment. So for my case, that meant that I added a question here, and I made it multiple choice, and I made it required. And then down at the bottom, I added a question, and then over here where I can pick the type of question, I clicked File Upload. And so then this populates your question with the different types of files that you're willing to accept, whether it be a Word document, spreadsheet, PDF, etc. You select which files you want, and then the maximum number of files that your students can submit. So in my case, only one, and I do want this to be required. And then in my case, I did come up here and change the kind of header and the background color using the theme options. So if I go to preview, this is what it would look like with my students. And now in this case, I've linked their email account to this so that they can only submit an assignment once. So for my case, it's showing up with my email. For the students, it would show up with theirs at the top. So let's say I wanted to upload my assignment. I have no questions. I want to browse my computer. And let's just say I upload this. Okay, so again, this is what your students would see. You as a teacher back on your kind of homepage can again see your responses either broken down by question or individually you can see their response. Now, if you also notice on the summary page down at the bottom, it says that these files that have been uploaded are now stored in your Google Drive. So in addition to storing them here, it creates a folder for you in your Google Drive where every student submission would be populated in this folder, which is really nice to be able to go back and just look at everyone's at once. So after you've created whatever it is that you want to create and you go to share that with your colleagues or your students or whomever, let's say that I want to share my exit ticket. Up at the top, I would click the button that says send. And then this allows you to send via email, via a link, or by embedding it in a website. So let's say that I just want to give my students a link and I want to shorten that link. I could copy that link and then distribute that however you normally distribute links to your students, whether it be kind of airdropping that link, writing it on the board. In our case, our school uses the website Schoology as kind of our learning management system. So what I could do is I could then go to my courses, for instance, in Schoology, and I could come into a unit. I could add a link for this quiz, or for this exit ticket, excuse me. And then as a student, they would be able to kind of use this page as their launch pad for jumping in. And in my case, I've already submitted a response to this quiz. The students would see the real exit ticket, provided that they haven't already responded. So I hope this helps kind of give you a little information on how to start using Google Forms if you haven't already been using this application. I encourage you to play around with it for yourself. There are lots of different templates you can work with, lots of cool things that you can do to use in the classroom. A few of which we've talked about are like your quizzes, your exit tickets, gaining contact information from your parents and things like that. So I encourage you to just kind of delve into it, play around with some of the things that it can do, and hopefully it'll be a good resource for you in your classroom this year.